This is HBR News number 475. Is Tim Pool over? Drama stream where we discuss the news of the week and give it the Badger treatment. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. Hope you guys are doing well this week and that you're laughing at all of this absurdity so that you are not consumed by it. I am your host, Brian, and I'm joined by, as always, my lovely co-hosts, Hannah Wallen and Dr. Ranmercam. I don't know why I spaced out on that. Yes. So we have a great show lineup for you guys this week, so please be sure to continue the conversations both in the chat as well as the comment section. On this week's, we're going to be talking about the latest going on with TimcastIRL. It appears that Tim Pool is going to be doing his last show, and this is having an effect that I felt was worth addressing because we kind of occupy the same space, and Tim has we've like bumped into each other on occasion, and I thought it was interesting and worth discussing, especially because I'll get into it later, but this seems to be like a thing that I'm seeing more and more, which is weird.
Well, the moral of the story is slow and steady wins the race. Mm-hmm. We at Honey Badger Radio have had a skeleton staff of like 5 or 6 people, and we've been going for 10 years. And Tim has millions of dollars at his disposal, and he can't quite keep it together. Goes to show you, doesn't it? Eh?
Yeah, I guess keep us poor and don't donate or anything. No, I'm kidding. Don't do that, please. Don't do that. Anyway, but yeah, we're going to be talking about the recent news that looks like the end of Timcast. A gay man has to prove that he's gay to the Home Office so that he can get asylum. A mom urges a ban on Halloween candies and more. So stick around. It's going to be a good time. And be sure to join us afterwards for the patron-only show. So on this week's patron-only show, as you can see, as we ramp up more and more towards the 2024 U.S. presidential election, the question on the lips of Democrats everywhere is, what the hell have we done to piss men off so much? And, of course, the answer is we blame them some more. So here's an opinion piece by Politico entitled, Democrats' Problem with Male Voters Isn't Complicated. Now, it sounds like this is going to be charitable, like we're going to explain rationally why, calling men garbage for like 4 years or maybe like 100 if you're paying attention, it doesn't gain a lot of favor with them, but you might the actual article might surprise you in its twist. So if you want to join us for that, you have to become a Badger yourself by going to feedthebadger.com and setting up a monthly subscription. $5 a month will get you into our Discord, where you'll be able to enjoy all of the bonus content, including, various like extra shows and like patron shows and stuff that Allison works on. And so, maybe do that. And if you don't want to wake up one morning and find that we've been yeeted from the internet, please go to badgerfeed.com or honeybadgerradio.com to find where all of our archived content lives. So, with all that said, kind of waiting to see if the chat starts getting populated with stuff. It'll take a moment. Let me see here. I want to make sure that social stream is working. So, maybe drop some messages and see if it pops up. All right, so let's get started with let's talk about Tim Pool really quick. So, this is the story as I understand it thus far. So, Tim Pool put out a vague sort of post where he basically said that he is feeling burned out. I had a tab open and I lost it. Give me a second here. I'm sorry. Where is my Tim Pool tab? Okay, here we go. Where he, let's see here. According to available information, Tim Pool's podcast, TimcastIRL, is still active and ongoing. He's going to do one show today where he basically alluded to ending the podcast. Where, and the reason for it is that he essentially is saying that he's feeling burned out and that he doesn't have any time to do anything. But mostly what this comes down to is he is saying that the people he works with have not been, doing their fair part to like make this whole thing work. Now, I watched a couple of people talk about this a little bit. Again, he's going to be doing a show today. and he will be addressing the concerns. But he did post on Twitter saying that this is going to be my last show. And I even have a video here where he talks a little bit about it. This was a compilation put together by someone trying to lampoon him. But I'll play this. It's meant to be funny, but I'm not going to play it for that purpose. Okay, so here we go.
And we are well off. It is not a financial thing. We make a lot of money, but piece by piece, the structure becomes bigger and bigger and bigger until it becomes impossible to manage. You know, I would never call out anybody personally or individually. I would just say that, like, compounding, I don't know, laziness.
Yeah.
That builds up over time, which adds more and more workload to, you know, me and Allison, to get to the point where we're just like, can't do it. We do really well. And, you know, the problem is, without a proper CEO who isn't hosting the show, it's not possible. Like, I think we have like 30-something employees. And so, you know, the conversations I've had with family is like, I am under no illusions that I have the capability to make this company what it could be. And I hear all these things, no, Tim, you're wrong. Oh, come on. We've been trying to get a coffee shop open for 2 years. Yeah. Clearly I cannot do it. I skateboard every day. Yeah, if we can't make cameras and a computer work, and despite all the previous failures we've had, there's not a single person here who can make sure that either the studio is operating or secondary studio is operating. We've gotten to a point in the company where everyone's kind of just kicked their feet up and said, I'm doing what I need to be doing. Yeah. And then that just means I'm Sisyphus pushing the rock up. The problem is people are sitting on the rock.
All right, so the sad music doesn't really help. I mean, I'm not playing. I wanted something that kind of like basically makes it really concise, because this is like part of a much longer, it's like a 2-hour podcast episode, and he had Dave Landau on, and he went back to his old studio to talk about it. But what it seems like is happening is that he hired all of his friends. So, like, people that he knew, people that he boarded with, people that he played music with, because, you know, he makes music and he skateboards and he does his show. He's not lazy. So when he says laziness, I don't think he's talking about himself, because, like, I met the guy a couple of times and he was so focused on doing his job. That's it. Like even at a party, he was completely like deadpan. Like, I'm just like, you know, focused on like, what's the next thing? I remember I met him in 2017 when we went to California. You remember that, Mike? You were there for the VidCon thing, and there was a big party, and Bunty King threw a bash.
He's all over the place. He even turned up to the Count Dankula rally in 2018.
Oh, I didn't go to that. 2018.
No, he can afford to travel all over the place just to turn up at a sort of gathering to protest against these sort of things. And that was back in the day when he was just his channel. And he would just do all of his stories all the time, and he would do multiple stories a day, and he had the energy to do that. It's weird that now that he has 30 people under him, he no longer has the energy. I don't think it's anything to do with energy. I think he's made a shitload of money. He's a millionaire. He's a multi-millionaire at this point. Yeah, I get the feeling he's just kind of going, all right, I made my money. I'm ducking out now. I can retire and just live the good life from now on, and that's fine. You know, that's why don't
have a problem.
It's
with
a distinct possibility. There's also the issue of if you've ever had to manage people, that can get a lot tougher than you would think it would, even if they're people. Well, actually, even especially if they're people that you were friends with prior to becoming kind of their manager. The more that somebody can draw on a sympathy that they feel that you already have for them, and they feel entitled to draw on or safe drawing on, or at least trying, the harder it is to hold people accountable when they don't do what they say they're going to do or do what they should be doing. And if he's dealing with, like, we here at Honey Badger Radio have had volunteers in the past, and we've had volunteers. We got volunteers now and we'll probably have volunteers in the future. And people can do that for a while, and they can't always do it permanently. Everybody's life has changes that take place, and in the last few years, a lot of people's lives have changed dramatically. Like I lost both my parents. Everything that I was doing in my life changed dramatically, and a lot of the reasons for it changed.
Yeah.
And so it's been similar with a lot of people I know, and it probably happened along his crew as well. And if he's trying to manage people through stuff like that, that stuff impacts as well. And if it's affecting his ability to manage his podcast, and if he has, I'm sure he has a standard of quality that he wants to put out there. He's running a business while he's trying to do his research, and then at the same time, it's a journalistic type business. It's not journalistic like straightforward reporting. It's journalistic like journalistic commentary, but it does really make it difficult. So I can see where he might have gotten to a point where he doesn't feel like he can provide the quality that he wants to provide and manage the people that he's working with, especially if they were all his friends. Then he may have to do this. This may be something that he's looking at going forward. It's going to fall apart in front of everybody, and he doesn't want to let that happen.
I wanted to also add a little bit more to this because, some people who have been responding to this that are actually like more or less on his side have kind of, ridiculed him a bit, calling him a crybaby and stuff like that. And generally this is what happens when men like air their actual like things that they're going through and things that they're struggling with. All of a sudden they do get made fun of for it, but that's not really what I want to put the focus on. I think to add more to this, okay, first off, I am impressed with Tim Pool's progress, how much he's grown considering how young he is and where he started from, and his ability to like shift his sort of perspective over time. I mean, I always make fun of him for being a fence sitter, and I still believe that on a lot of things he's like, he plays it safe, but it's fine. Like he used to work at Vice. So let's just say that is a massive shift. But the other thing is, let's look at, okay, first of all, when he said he was thinking about ending his show, he was only talking about the TimcastIRL podcast, which was the one where, the one that most people know, but he has several other shows going on. But there's also another thing to take in consideration. So I'm trying to look at this in the fairest way. So he brought a bunch of people on board to work for him. Most of those people were his friends. So it was like he was trying to give his friends opportunities. And I get that, because if I ever started a big business and I had like my friends and I thought they could be, that they were interested and it was giving them an opportunity, I could see myself wanting to bring them on board. There are risks that come with this. It's kind of like working with family. You don't know if they're not going to take advantage of that relationship and exploit it. He has talked about people stealing equipment that he hired on and stealing from his company. But it's probably not such a big problem that they, weren't able to sort of like, adapt and move on. There's also the idea that the company did get really big. And I think the bigger a company gets, the more people you have in it, the more people you're going to have that aren't doing that much. So it becomes like the Pareto principle, as they say, like 20% of the people do most of the work or something like that. So he is probably running into people who just aren't putting in their, the amount of work they should be, and they're becoming something that he's just paying for. Fortunately, this team here at HBR is really small, so I guess that kind of keeps that from happening. And then there's the other thing is that he used to work, he was a part of a larger company that Lauren Chen started called Tenet Media. And Tenet Media, it basically imploded because of some lawsuit involving Russian money. I think we covered it on the news show a while back. And it was basically a collection of other, sort of content creators. So like The Quartering, I think, was part of it. Benny Johnson, Matt Christensen, Tim Pool, Lauren Chen, and speaking of
Lauren Southern, who has completely gone radio silent since that scandal happened.
Lauren Chen has too. I haven't heard anything from either of them And the thing is, I'm not accusing them of anything, but I think that kind of thing, like when you get hit with this massive lawsuit out of the blue and these crazy allegations, I think it can be demoralizing if you're just sort of like tangentially attached, because Tim Pool has been sort of like, made to try to answer for this stuff ever since this happened. I remember I saw him on Piers Morgan, and I was going to make this a show topic if Allison wanted to, but where, there was like a woman on there accusing everybody of being sexist, and Tim Pool was on there having to defend himself, and this one was throwing this whole like, you're taking Russian money and all that. So I think that it can sort of, be extremely stressful with all of these things coming together. And maybe and again, like Mike said, he doesn't have to work. But if you look at it, that is kind of a lot to deal with. Plus, speaking of Matt Christensen, he used to have a weekly show with Blonde in the Belly of the Beast, Rebecca. I don't remember her last name, or I don't know her last name. And they had a big falling out. And it was for similar reasons. Matt Christensen was doing most of the work on that show. Rebecca would just show up and have commentary. And yet he was splitting the money 50-50. And all he asked of her was for her to be consistent and, committed to doing the show, because he thought that she brought something special to it. And she just like left and I guess, kind of burned some bridges on the way out. So then this is another thing, right? So like I'm looking at it from this, and it's kind of strange because you're seeing, all these things kind of happening. But I know that Tim Pool's not going to go away. He's just going to probably cut back his content. He doesn't really have to be all that ambitious. And for people who don't think he's done anything, I mean, he sat down with Donald Trump and did an interview with him, and held his feet to the fire on certain things like, foreign wars and such. I thought that was amazing. And there aren't a lot of people who can say that, other than like Patrick Bet-David, who's like a billionaire anyways. So, I think Tim Pool did what Joe Rogan wouldn't do. So there's that. Yeah. So big ups to you. What I would say is you probably need to decompress. Do not let these people demoralize you, because that is the goal. And I know that everything that's happened with Tenet Media, with Lauren Chan, Lauren Southern, and Matt Christensen, on top of like your own friends, like this is why you should be very. I'm not saying you shouldn't work with friends. I would like to believe that I work with friends when I do this show, but that you don't let people exploit your friendship so that they can get away with shit. Like if they're not really putting in what you're putting in, or like trying to like help you realize a vision, or you're not marching in this thing together, then maybe they're not actually your friends. Maybe they're just people that you skateboard with or play in a band with. So anyway, go ahead, Mike.
It's the wings of Icarus that sort of hang over all of us, not just on the right, but on the left and on everything in between. As you grow bigger and bigger, you sort of, if you continue to grow on that trajectory, you inevitably reach the point where you can't handle it anymore. And because this happens to so many of us who go into it on our own, just doing our own channel, and eventually some people get so big that they have to create a company, and they were never prepared for this in the first place, because we go into this just as individuals, just doing our own thing. So, and we don't have that same mentality that businessmen go into these things.
Yes,
businessmen that always had this sort of drive to grow bigger and bigger, like Trump. Trump has proved himself able to just grow and get more and more employees to the nth degree, and they can somehow handle it. But the internet has made it possible for people who would never dream of being able to do that, sort of falling into that thing, and that's why I'm sort of paradoxically grateful that I've been able to sit in the shadows, and so have all of us. We've been able to do this from the shadows this whole time, because we've been able to do this just with our close friends, and not have to grow it into a big old company where we have to pay 30 people or more, or hundreds of people or more, because that's where it gets this is where it grows beyond what you ever thought you could ever handle. And God knows if YouTube didn't throttle us and shadow ban us into obscurity, we might be in that position where we're employing dozens of people, and we might have trouble handling all of that. But we don't have to deal with that because we've been shadow banned and throttled into
Oblivion.
the same obscurity that we've always lived in, and that's why we are the tortoise that is capable of beating the hare.
Yeah, I was gonna add to that too. Carl Sargon. I mean, he kind of did something different. He built his own media company too, the Lotus Eaters, and I don't know if it's because his team is a lot. They're less prolific. They're still pretty. They do a lot of work, and I think it's good work. But for whatever reason, they're not in like the sites of like the sort of woke cathedral as much as Tim. I mean, he's been swatted a number of times. Like I said, he's had on pretty controversial guests. He's had Kanye West on his show. He's interviewed Trump. Like, this is massive. But I think it comes down to like how many times your work unintentionally or intentionally pokes the bear, and I think Tim's poked the bear more than say Carl has. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Lotus Eaters, got their own kind of trouble, maybe in the same way that guys like, outspoken dissident types like Lawrence Fox has. I mean, he's been arrested, and that was just for like COVID stuff, right? So I just wanted to say that, don't be demoralized, Tim. Keep the beady on tight. And keep at it. It's okay if you need to cut back on your work. And also, be careful who you let into your circle, especially because you are, whether you like it or not, considered a radical by the cathedral. So, all right, I got a super chow. Oh, Hannah, did you want to add anything else? Because I think you were trying to talk.
No, I just most of the things that go along with running a media company we pretty much covered. He probably also had ads too, didn't he?
I don't think he did, actually. I didn't watch a lot of Tim Pool, so I couldn't say. Maybe he did. He's not like the Quartering. Quartering's got all kinds of ads, but like, I do know one thing that Tim Pool said, and I think this is a testament to like what he wants out of his company. I mean, he used to say that he would love for his show to be more like Steven Crowder's show, because Steven Crowder's show, he says, is the gold standard. I believe that that's true. Whether you like it or not, I think the way that Crowder's show is formatted, he has like, he does little videos, he has sketches, he does the news stuff, he brings on guests. Like, I think that is what I think would be a great format for our show. I mean, I always talk about, I know that it's not really like within reach because of how far away we are, but something like it I think would be amazing. And I agree with Tim, and that's what I think that's what Tim
would be a
I think that's what Tim was shooting for. But
no, the reason I was wondering about that is I'm coming at this from a different standpoint, right? My family has had media businesses. We've had a photography business we did journalistic photography, we did portraits and weddings and all that. So there was a variety of stuff we did. And then we ran a newspaper for 3 years in the 80s. And so I kind of learned a lot about all of that. And our family newspaper did get to a point where we had to make a decision whether this was going to be a full-time, constant endeavor that my parents relied on for their income, or they were going to have to back out of it because it got big enough that it was going to require that much work. And they ended up deciding that they did not want to stop being teachers. And that was, you can't do both. You can't run a media conglomerate and have another job. And so he may have things going on in his life where he's made decisions. And when you throw in advertising or anything like that, where you are doing business with any third parties as part of your business, it gets another layer of complication gets added. If you have a payroll, another layer of complication gets added. He may just be stepping back and reevaluating, and we may see him come back from this with doing something new, or he may really be burned out. It's a lot to take on all at once.
It is. Yeah, it gets to you eventually. All right, well, let us know what you guys think about this in the comments. Like I said, I'm still like basically supportive of him existing. I think he needs to be in the space. I think it's important, despite the fact that, yeah, he says boneheaded things when it comes to men and women and feminism.
You'll get your civil war, Tim, sooner or later.
Yeah. Maybe he is the first casualty. But yeah, let us know what you guys think about that in the comments. I'm going to read your super chows and super chats, and then we're going to move on to the next story. So Meredith G gives us $5 and says, HBR News number 475, Honey for the Badger. You realize that there has been multiple issues in the company over the years, and some of it has involved family and longtime friends, and hiring your friends may be part of the problems. Yes, I think that there are people who would, like, it sucks to have, like, you know, you get a friend hired at your job. I've done that. And then they, like, get lazy and complacent because they think that because they're friends with you, it makes it okay. Oh, it's terrible. Also, the TimcastIRL show is the one where they have experienced multiple swatting events. Yeah, but he basically lives in a compound with, like, all kinds of guns, skateboards, and chickens. I don't know who would have the courage to invade that space, but...
Well, we don't get lazy people involved in home badger radio. We get very motivated people who go on to make bigger channels than ours.
Yeah, right, yeah. Exactly. Yeah, we are the magic's sprinkle juice that basically transforms Blair White into somebody who can tour the country and hang out with Rosie. What is her name? Roseanne Barr, not Rosie O'Donnell. Roseanne Barr.
And,
so
and Max, he's got a much bigger channel than us. Krauts,
yeah.
Aiden, they've all got much bigger channels than us. Like,
yeah.
Well, you're welcome. I mean, we were only a springboard, but
yeah, basically, it's nice.
Happy
though.
to be a springboard.
All right. So thank you for that, Meredith. You are in fact the real G. And then Zeranx gives us $5 and says, Tim said Tenet licensed his Culture podcast, and I think he was paid $100,000 for it. After Tenet fell, that podcast is back on his channel. Oh, the Culture War one, is that the one with that young lady that hosts it, that Zoomer chick? I don't remember her name. But I know that there's like I think it is Culture Wars or something like that. And it's basically like more so talking about pop culture stuff. But anyway, yeah, thank you for the super chows and so on. Yes, Shoe on Head used to go on our show as well. That's right. I believe that she's got a baby, and that's why we haven't seen her in a while. So, congratulations, Shu, if that's true. Okay. So, let's move on to the next story. Let us know what you guys think about this one in the comments section. So, next up, we got Kamala Harris. Now, why would I bring this up? Well, because it's important to note, again, this campaign in particular, this election is probably even more of a battle between feminism and non-feminism, or at least like, you know, a kind of normal level of feminism, I guess, than any before in my lifetime, even more than Hillary Clinton in 2016. And this is because, like, Hillary Clinton can't really cry misogyny, although she tried. It didn't really land well because she was a little too old and she wasn't very likable. But this isn't stopping Kamala and the entire media apparatus from trying to play the same game. So we're going to get into that right now. Kamala Harris has suggested that men who do not support her are potentially misogynistic. This statement has sparked significant reactions, predominantly from, viewpoints on the pro-MAGA side, which argue that her comments reflect a broader issue of identity politics within the Democratic Party. Well, more accurately, feminism. Critics, including those cited in this article from the Gateway Pundit, argue that such rhetoric alienates potential voters by implying that opposition or lack of support is rooted in gender bias rather than policy disagreement or political alignment. So she was sitting down with Al Sharpton, who's totally a credible individual, and he basically fed her the answer. Do you think that, the reason why black men, by the way, that's the important thing too. They're talking about black men. So obviously this is where black guys that you're watching, you lose your black card immediately when a woman gets involved. And I want you to remember and internalize that seriously. Okay. So black men who do not agree, and Obama already did this too, like last week or something. He basically said that he ridiculed and wagged his finger at black men for not, coming out with the same energy to support Kamala. And but yeah, so Al Sharpton basically said, that, don't you think that there is a problem with misogyny in the black male population because they're not supporting you? And naturally, because he fed her this line, she agreed. So this is I think, okay, so I just want to lay out my opinion. You guys can say whatever. So yeah, Mike, go ahead.
Have you finished laying out your opinion?
No, I'm about to. Okay, so the these people don't have anything else to play. So they can't actually say we want to address the concerns that men have, because the concerns that men have put them at odds with their agenda, and the group that they are currently pandering to are women as a block of voters. So they cannot give men any room in there, because anything that is given to men is seen as being taken away from women. It is a zero-sum game in the eyes of the people that are, doing this. So they can't actually say, okay, men, we know what you're concerned with are things like jobs and your ability to support your family and your ability to, buy groceries, whatever, immigration, all of these other things. They can't do that because they're promising the women abortions and nothing else should take priority over that. And so what they're doing is the same thing they have been doing since this has been going on, is essentially trying to shame men into voting out of guilt. So you have to support your women. You hate women. You're a misogynist. How do you reconcile that? How do you make up for that? How do you repent? Well, vote for Kamala Harris. And so that's what the tactic is, because they have nothing left when it comes to men. And the thing is that that's just how it always has been, or at least for a very long time. So anyway, Mike, go ahead, take it away.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I warned you all about this back in the day when Joe Biden was still the president. Not that Joe Biden was ever really the president. It's now beyond refutation that no individual was ever in charge of the Democrat Party. It's an oligarchy of money sinks corroborated in a great money abyss designed only to siphon the fruits of your labor to the highest bidder. But as I warned you, if Kamala Harris ever becomes president, you will not be able to criticize anything the president does. You will be dismissed as a sexist and a racist. The bullet you dodged when you voted against Hillary is nothing compared with the bullet you will not dodge when it comes to Kamala. She could drop 1,000 nukes on Russia, and Russia could in turn drop 1,000 nukes on America. And while you desperately seethe from the wasteland of nuclear fallout, your complaints will only land you in prison, because how dare you criticize a woman of color? You all saw that interview she did at Fox News, right? Where she said, Donald Trump will prosecute people just for peacefully protesting. And I'm sat here screaming at the screen about January the 6th. People are still languishing in prison for peacefully protesting against a stolen election. This is what they could achieve, even when the president was an old white guy like Joe Biden. You cannot begin to imagine what they can and will get away with when the president is a woman of color. They won't even need to spin any bullshit about how this was the most secure election in history. They won't even need to spin any bullshit other than the only two words they ever need to utter. Sexist, racist. I can't afford to feed my children. Well, you're a sexist, racist. My home just got ransacked and taken over by a gang of illegal Venezuelan aliens. Sexist, racist. I'm dying slowly from radiation poisoning from the dirty bomb that just went off in my city because of your foreign policies. Brrr, sexist, racist. This is your future, folks, forever. Even when Europeans have been wiped out, even when every man is identifying as a woman, this is still your future. Because if you criticize the president, they will dismiss you as a regressive dinosaur who longs for the long ago when white men ruled with an iron fist. in those halcyon days when you could run your own business and make your own money. That was the past. And the future is women of color. The future is good and the past is bad. No matter what happens or what has happened, the future is female, and you can't argue with the future because it has already happened. It's what gives me pause when it comes to what we used to call the divine right of kings. It just means if God allowed this regime to rule, then it must be the right thing to do because fate has decreed it. Well, you could say the same thing about the 1,000 years of darkness that could be about to descend on us. It is happening, therefore it was always supposed to happen. It's the same proposition as you can't stop progress. And I disagree. Sometimes awful things happen, and you can't just excuse it by saying it happened, therefore it was bound to happen. These things only happen because people resign themselves to whatever happens to be happening. Don't get me wrong, I think we were better off with kings than we ever have been with the failed god that is democracy. What democracy is leading us towards is a fate far worse than the excesses of any monarchy. What we're missing is the two-way street of accountability. Whoever is in charge should face the sword of Damocles. There needs to be a mechanism in place for the people who to exact vengeance on the leaders. For the most part, that's how it worked during monarchy. If you, as a king, completely fuck up in your responsibilities as king, we, the people, will have no choice but to exact the Magna Carta. Failing that, we'll just cut your fucking head off. It's not an ideal state of affairs, but there's no such thing as an ideal state of affairs. We're a complicated species. We need a complicated system of rule if we are to thrive from one age to the next. If we have a system wherein the ruling class can do anything they like with no fear of consequences, then we can expect 1,000 years of darkness, or in all likelihood, a swift collapse of the empire. Or empires typically last approximately 250 years. And as you may have noticed, we are now 2 years away from the 250th anniversary of the American Empire. This is why we're calling this the most important election of our lifetime, and not just in America, but in the rest of the world. And in this case, it's true. We're 2 weeks away from the inflection point at which the empire will result in either the Big Brother future or the future in which we finally get over this insane gynocentrism and we can explore the solar system or indeed the cosmos and become an interstellar species. I know I sound like I'm exaggerating, and perhaps I am, but at the end of the day, I was born into a middle-class family. Have you no empathy, Mon? I have chili sauce in my handbag. Orange man bad. Let us not be burdened.
You fall out of a coconut tree.
Yeah.
Let us not be burdened by what has not been orange, and proceed unburdened by those who do not season they food. The power and the glory forever and ever. Amen.
And women.
I'm going to be really blunt about this because I'm tired of it, right? Every time we have a female candidate on either side of the political fence, we hear this shit. So, in the spirit of minorities being able to hand out my racism's pass, here is your official misogyny pass from Honey Badger Radio. Right? You can vote however you want, whatever you think is right, and whatever you think is going to take your country forward in the best pathway possible for as many people as possible. And about being accused of misogynies, right? Your knees are not soggy. You have not done anything wrong. You have made a decision based on policy and ideas and what is going to work and what is not going to work in your opinion. And that's it. There's your pass. If you need one, you have it now. Because I'm honest to God retired, just retired from this. I can't take it anymore. It's embarrassing to watch women run on their vagina. You know, they get mad.
It also sounds like it hurts.
Get mad. Yeah, well, you know, we do kind of sit on it. But I mean, like women get mad if men reduce them to this in any other area of life. Oh, well, you know, you're a female reproductive system with a person around it. And we have to take that into consideration if we're going to hire you for this job. Are you going to take time off to have a baby? Can you handle the physical end of it? You know, blah, blah, blah. They get mad about that, even though those questions are valid in many instances. They get mad about that. But as soon as you have questions about their performance, well, you just hate me because I'm a woman. You know, bullshit. Everybody hates Kamala Harris, who hates her, and everybody distrusts Kamala Harris, who distrusts her, because she's a dipshit. She's never been anything but a dipshit. She is a dipshit who just happens to have a woman card. Just like, in a lot of ways, even though he was very well spoken for a dipshit, Obama is a dipshit who just happens to have more racism's card. Oh, if you don't like this policy, if you don't like this kumbaya, if you don't like this, everybody gets the same thing. Everybody gets a trophy. Everybody gets, you know, we're going to order you to buy the thing that you don't have and can't afford, and that's going to solve your poverty problem. Dipshittery. It's because you don't like black people. Like, no, we don't. We know that telling people to spend money they don't have doesn't solve their poverty. We know that policy that doesn't address the problem doesn't solve the problem. And there isn't some outside political opinion about people getting along with other people, social issues and attitudes and so on that you can substitute for, if we do this, are things going to get better? Is it going to have negative consequences? Will people suffer because of it? Will people get what you're promising they're going to get out of it? Is it going to cost a lot of money for nothing? You know, you can't substitute social ideas for that. You can't substitute attitude for actuality. It doesn't work. You know, this dog bites everybody, but he's so cute. Let's pet him anyway. No, that's not a good idea. You're still going to get bit. And it's not because you're not a dog lover, right? It's because the dog is not a people lover. If you reach out for it knowing that, you're an idiot. Well, Kamala Harris is not an accountability lover. She changes who she is every 5 minutes. Sticks her finger up into the breeze, licks it, sticks it up into the breeze, goes, oh, it's blowing from this direction. Okay, now that's who I am today. You can't have somebody like that running your country. Right? And, it would be a lot easier to have this conversation if she was running against someone who had no flaws. But we have human beings for candidates. And we have a candidate that has a track record, right? It's not all good. It's not all bad. But it has some things that are very important to the men's rights movement, in my opinion. Only one person during pretty much my whole lifetime has fought for due process rights for men who are accused of sexual misconduct or criminal behavior. And that was Donald Trump. Kamala Harris didn't do that. She has done the opposite. Her historical track record as a politician
as a
has
prosecutor
been the opposite. And yeah, she was a prosecutor. She didn't build people houses. she put people in jail. She put people in the big house, right? Men specifically, yes. She put women in the big house too. And that for the dumbest thing, right? She jailed a woman for having a child with sickle cell anemia. The child had sickle cell anemia, and there were times when the child was too sick to go to school, and Kamala Harris jailed the mother for truancy. Now, I don't have personal experience with sickle cell anemia, but I do have personal experience with being too sick to go to school sometimes. That's not something that the parents get to decide. They can't like magically wave a wand and say, okay, child, you will not be sick today because it's a school day. You have to wait to get sick until after school on Friday, and then you have to be better by Monday. It doesn't work that way. She jailed a parent for caring for a child with sickle cell anemia. So when she demands that you owe her allegiance to some racial attitude and idea of who should be on your side and whose side you should be on, you just remember that. She had no compassion for that. Right? And dads, don't think she'll go easier on you. She will be even worse on fathers than she was on that mother. And that's another thing. No accountability for how she treats people. No accountability for throwing zero tolerance into a situation where the person that she's judging could not have made a different decision. There wasn't a different decision to make. So yeah, your misogyny card or pass, here it is. Because honestly, if the reason that she does all that stuff that people don't like is because she's a woman, then being a woman disqualifies her. If the reason that she can't support due process rights for people accused of crimes, and she can't deal with the reality of their circumstances is because she's a woman, then being a woman disqualifies her from being the commander-in-chief and the executive of the entire government system, and a check and a balance on the judicial system, because that's how our government is supposed to work. She can't do that job if being a woman makes her incapable of dealing with the humanity that exists within that system. Period.
The question often comes, are you ready for a female president? And the answer is no, not because we hate women, but because we love them far too fucking much. And
well, honestly, it's not, are we ready for a woman president? Are women ready to step up to the responsibility of president? And this is something that I've been trying to get across to people. If she cannot be accountable for how she treats people, and in particular how she treats men, then she's not. It doesn't matter whether we're ready or not. We could be totally ready for a woman president, but this woman is not ready to be our president.
No way. I mean, she shouldn't have gone as far as she has.
That's before we even get into whether she's going to send you or your sons or both to war.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I'm sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
Yeah, we had a female prime minister, a very prominent one. She existed for 3 terms, no less. Her name was Margaret Hilda Roberts Thatcher, and that didn't appease the feminists whatsoever. they were very rabidly against her existence for her entire term,
mm-hmm.
which goes to show you that feminists don't want a woman in charge. They want a fucking communist in charge.
Yes. Yeah, at the end of the day, they want an authoritarian in charge, but if that authoritarian is a woman, it's good for them because it's they're able to evade accountability. And because we're going to be, forgiving and permissive, and we're going to overlook flaws. We'll even overlook evil. We already overlook evil. Why do you think I make it a point, if I see like a a news story of a woman doing something evil, that I, deeply consider making that a point, because a lot of people need to realize that women are totally capable of doing evil. But anyway, we should move on to the next story. Let us know what you guys think about this in the comments. I did get a super chat from Xeranx for $5, and he says, according to the Root magazine, I'm the white people of black people because I'm straight. So Harris can cope and seethe. Sunglasses, smiley emoji. Thank you, Xeranx. Yes, you are the white people of black people because you are straight male, and that's enough. Being black doesn't protect you. Albernator Retro gives us $2 Canadian and says, she put a guy she knew was innocent on Delete's row. Yes, Hannah addressed that, but thank you. Anyway, let us know what you guys think about this one in the comments. It's time to move on to the next story. I just thought this one was kind of weird. So we have, let me just bring up the thing. So a gay man from Bangladesh identified as Mansoor sought asylum in the UK, but was rejected by a judge who questioned his sexual orientation, stating Mansoor was not truly gay, but was trying to pass himself off as gay. This decision was part of a broader issue highlighted by Metro, where the UK's Home Office and its asylum process have been criticized for a perceived culture of disbelief towards LGBTQ plus asylum seekers. Mansoor's case involved detailed scrutiny of his personal life to prove his sexuality, reflecting the challenges many face in proving their orientation for asylum claims. Like, what did he have to do to prove that he was gay, I wonder? Despite evidence and support from community groups, the judge's ruling centered on a lack of sufficient documentary evidence from before his asylum application, suggesting his presentation of being gay was manufactured. This case underscores the difficulties and discriminatory practices within the asylum system. Also, he could have just gotten on a boat and came in with all the other migrants.
Yes. Bro didn't get the memo. Bro wasn't privy to the small print when it comes to the absolute state of UK immigration. Don't try to do it legally, bro. Are you crazy? Of course you're going to get scrutinized if you obey the law. What you're supposed to do is turn up on the south coast in a makeshift dinghy, bereft of any passport or other documents, and mysteriously handcuffed to a 10-year-old boy. Hey, presto, you'll be given a 4-star accommodation and complimentary spending money for the rest of your life. But it's expensive to make it all the way from Bangladesh to the north coast of France. And then you need another 10,000 euros to pay the human traffickers to put you on the dinghy. Yeah, well, yeah, that's what the 10-year-old boy is for. You can make a small fortune hitchhiking across the Middle East with an underage sex slave in tow. And by the time you make it to Britain, just tell everyone he's your boyfriend. Don't worry, Habibi. He's 18. Don't worry about the dead-eyed blank expression on his face. Don't worry about all the bleeding from all the anal fissures. What are you, homophobic and racist? And the British government will go, we're so sorry, sir. Here, let us flagellate ourselves in shame. Carry on. We'll drive you in a limousine to Buckingham Palace. You can live there. Fuck those straight white cunts. And I mean literally, fuck King Charles in his big floppy bat ears, and we'll figure out how it's all his fault somehow. Seriously, though, I don't think we're getting the full story here. I think we might be getting nothing but a bank of whoppers, not least because our source in this case is
The Metro.
The Metro, which is a woke rag as full of shit as any other woke rag. And they're always on the lookout for stories that paint foreigners as victims or gay people as victims. So this is 24-karat gold as far as they're concerned. It's a 3-hit combo. A gay brown foreigner. He's our hero now.
Yeah.
It's only a shame that he's not a lesbian. But if he was,
he could be if he wanted to.
He could be, but they wouldn't have a story, because a woman would get into the country. Our government and media are steadfastly telling us that all these refugees and asylum seekers are women and children, and they'll take any opportunity to show us a scrap of evidence of any woman being shunted out of any country for any reason. But they can't, because it doesn't happen. It's not just here in the West that we're ruled by pathetic simps who will do anything to protect women. It's literally anywhere and everywhere. So yeah, I don't know if this guy is legitimately gay or legitimately Bangladeshi, or even if he's a real person who exists. But this story is funny because it's emblematic of the knotted mess of intersectional bullshit that has to be thrown on a man like a gladiator's net before anyone will even hypothetically offer him any sympathy. Are you foreign? Well, you're not foreign enough. Are you gay? Well, you're not gay enough.
Prove it. Suck that dick.
Are you a woman? Well, you're not woman enough. Get rid of that for a start. Get rid of those. Turn up in your gaudiest drag outfit and see if you can break the law. Preferably rape and or stab at least 3 children, and then we'll see if we can bring ourselves to treat you like a first-class citizen. Or you can just appeal to the press, and they'll write a bunch of lies and post a bunch of images that make everyone go fuck having laws and borders and shit. It's the meme. It's literally the meme. But this time it's the meme with a rainbow painted on it. It's just farcical at this point. How is anyone not sick of this shit already? Sorry, carry on.
It's true.
It just strikes me that if a guy was going to pretend to be something to get into a foreign country, the last thing he would choose would be gay. It just, even now, even in the modern West, where we have this in your face, we're here, we're queer, we're in your face, that kind of in your face, you can't do anything to me for this kind of attitude, it's reserved for women. And it's reserved for men who have a flamboyant stereotype for their sexuality. If you just are quietly gay and just everything else about you is pretty typical as part of the local population, but you happen to be gay, it seems to actually piss people off that you're not flamboyant and strange and unusual, and then they start making all kinds of stupid assumptions that are not backed in any kind of historical fact or experiences they've had or anything. It's just, oh, well, so you can't trust the quiet ones, the blah, blah, blah. Or it's fake. He just says that. He just says that because he gets sympathy. And it's baloney. You just are who you are. And as far as, having to prove that if that was a woman, nobody would be asking any questions. Even if she came from a country where women are not persecuted for being gay, but men are, all she would have to do would come out and say, well, it's illegal to be gay in this country, and I'm gay, and you have to let me in. And that would be it.
Is it illegal to be gay in Bangladesh? Is that like a, I don't know. I mean, probably.
I don't know what kind of I don't know what kind of laws they have in place. I don't know.
Well,
I do know that legally speaking, they're pretty gynocentric. So it's very possible that it's illegal to be gay just because you're not living the traditional lifestyle. You're not dedicating yourself to a woman. You're not popping out, couple kids or 20 or whatever, and teaching them to grow up and be good workers and so on. So it is very possible.
As far as I know, the legacy of Mahatma Gandhi is that not just that he helped the British to move away after the Second World War, and the British had to move away anyway. But he was like, no, you British have to move away, and we have to divide this country into people who want to rule various regions of the country. And shortly after that, the region we know as Pakistan and the region we then knew as East Pakistan. It became a thing, and shortly after that, people went, "Oh well, we ought to make West Pakistan and East Pakistan different countries," and so they did, and so West Pakistan became Pakistan and East Pakistan became Bangladesh. So I think there's a large contingency of Muslims, not just in Pakistan but also in Bangladesh.
Yeah, that makes it more likely that it's illegal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's only illegal for men, according to. I hope I'm not going to pronounce your name wrong, but it looks like it's Bhavya Arora says it's only illegal for men in Bangladesh. This is something that's consistent around the world, right?
Mhm.
Homosexuality, where it's illegal, is usually either only illegal for men or only enforced against men. So even when it's illegal for women to also be homosexual, it's men getting the death penalty, whereas women might just get separated, or watched over, whatever, but nobody actually does anything about it, because most of the time laws against male homosexuality are about enforcing the production of children. And you can't, you can force a man to produce children against his will, but you really can't force him to be a parent. And you can put women in a situation where they'll just parent because they don't have the capacity to just turn around and walk away. So there's a lot of men. Of course, women, their role as a parent doesn't involve bringing in the resources and dedicating themselves as a worker for the family.
Yeah.
Richard Beer says it's either pronounced senior supervisor or verification officer. I like that.
Mm-hmm. All right. Let us know what you guys think about that one in the comments. Just thought, like I said, I thought it was just a really weird story. But we're going to move on to the last story. And this is also a weird one. Kind of a slow news week. I didn't see anything that really jumped out at me. So, we're just working with what we have. So, a mother from Worcester. Okay.
It's so funny that Worcestershire sauce has become so famous in countries where they
Right
can't
here, they
possibly...
call it wash your sister sauce.
Look. It occurred to me that most Americans, the way that most Americans pronounce forward, you'll say forward, right?
Yeah.
Which makes sense. Because
we say forward.
Saying forward sounds a little bit derpy. So most of you remove the first R. You can do that with Worcester. Just say Worcester. If you want to pronounce Worcestershire sauce, just say Worcestershire sauce.
Worcester. Okay. So okay.
This is why English people remove all the R's, and it's why New England people remove all the R's, because it sounds so much less derpy just to say Worcestershire.
Clam chowder.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Bring the car around. They're a bunch of homos. Okay, a mother from Worcester. A mother from Worcester is urging parents to reconsider giving out lollipops this Halloween following a distressing incident where her daughter choked on a dip dab lollipop. The girl, after less than 2 minutes with the lollipop in her mouth, experienced the top part come off the stick, lodging in her throat. This led to a life-threatening situation where her parents had to perform emergency measures, including the Heimlich maneuver, before rushing her to the hospital. Although the immediate danger was averted, the lollipop piece remains lodged, necessitating further medical checks to prevent infection. This incident has led the mother to advocate for a ban on all lollipops this Halloween, highlighting the potential dangers of such sweets. She shared her story on social media, urging caution about the types of sweets distributed or consumed during the holiday. This case is now adding to a broader discussion on child safety during Halloween, with some parents and communities reevaluating traditional treats due to safety concerns. So,
this is
ban lollipops, guys.
This is a rough one. So, when we were kids, Gen X were kids, we went out trick or treating unsupervised after a certain age, and by unsupervised I mean there was not a parent with the children. You would see kids walking up and down the street with no parents with them, and it was common enough that if you look at popular media from up to the 90s, up to the 1990s, it would portray kids trick or treating without their parents with them. And all of a sudden, by the time my kids were little, that was not a thing anymore. You went with your kids. You didn't send them out. And I lived in Dayton by that time, so I wouldn't have sent my kids out unsupervised anyway. But there's been the candy debate and the fear mongering around candy for trick or treat and all that for decades. When we were kids, it was the urban legend of
The
the
razor
person putting the
blades.
razor blades in the
Yeah.
candy, and that resulted in a lot of local hospitals actually dedicate an X-ray machine on trick or treat night in their area. You can bring your candy in and have it X-rayed because moms hear something like that, and it gets stuck in your head. It's like you just can't get that idea out of your head. And even if it sounds ridiculous, even if you don't believe any such thing could possibly happen, you still can't refrain from worrying about it, right? There's a easy way to deal with that. You cut up the candy. If you're really that worried, you cut up the candy. Well, then there was they're poisoning the candy. And it's always just a thing of this fun activity for children is not allowed to be fun. Local churches do alternatives to trick or treat night. They talk about how trick or treat is originally a pagan holiday and or a pagan activity, and it has pagan roots and all that stuff. Not to confuse it with All Saints Day, which is totally not rooted in paganism in any way, shape, or form, right? But the fact is that there's always been, throughout our whole lives as Gen Xers, there's always been somebody trying to take the fun out of Halloween. Now, is it dangerous if the top comes off a sucker? Absolutely. And yeah, this kid went through something that was awful and could have killed her. And that can happen with anything that you eat if you're not careful. When you read parenting magazines as a young parent and stuff like that, you learn that when your kids start getting old enough to eat little bits of real food that's not mashed up, that you should cut it into very small pieces and none of them should be round because it fits in the throat. If your kid has a tendency to choke, then you have to be careful about that. This is a fluke. This is a freak accident. And to say that it's going to happen over and over again to kids is dumb. And to say that something should be banned is dumb. Should parents be careful? And should parents keep track of their little kids when they're eating candy? Absolutely. But panicking over something like this and demanding a community-wide panic is dumb. It's something that people should know about. Hey, this can happen. You got to be careful. Watch out for your kid. Don't let them eat suckers when they're not in the room with you, especially if they're really little. But don't just assume that every sucker you give your child is going to have this happen. It's unusual for it to come off. The way they're made, they usually not only stick to the stick, but you can't even get all the crunchy parts off the stick when you eat a sucker. So unless it's something that I know some of those like pressed powder suckers can come off the stick. You really shouldn't have to worry about that. If it's filled, maybe. But for the most part, parents shouldn't freak out about something like that. Hell, my parents used to actually give out. They had a bushel of apples, and they had candy, and kids could pick what they wanted. And there were a lot of kids that picked apples because they didn't get fresh fruit at home. So and kids that picked candy were not shamed for it or anything like that. It was more about giving kids choices and being somebody in the neighborhood that didn't give out exactly the same thing that everybody else gave out. There were some of the ladies in my neighborhood used to give out like little there's these little games and stuff that you can get in vending machines for like a quarter that it's one of those, you push a button and it moves a little ball through a maze or something like that. And there was one lady that always gave those out. And she bypassed the whole candy issue by giving out something that kids would enjoy playing with. I don't even know if kids today would like that kind of thing, right? And then we had the weirdo that gave out Chick Tracts that told us all we were going to hell for going trick or treat. And we had to ask our parents about, what's ball worship? And we always pronounced it Baal and had all kinds of questions and stuff. And Mom was like, this person that gave out these is a little bit off their rocker, and you don't have to worry about it. None of it's true. And that was the end of that. But this is bullshit, in my opinion. This is panic mongering, and it's very feminine behavior.
Yeah.
And it's not something that it's hitting a thumbtack with a sledgehammer.
And yeah, I'm enjoying the theme of how the fuck is this news?
Yeah.
that we're doing this week, specifically from the UK. It's like we used to do on Untailed Features stream before he took everything down. It's nice to take a break from all the heavy shit and just laugh at nonsense that has no reason to exist as news. The obvious point, as Hannah's just portrayed in their story, is: Are we going to ban Werther's Original and mint humbugs or whatever?
What the hell is a mint humbug? I've never. That's a British thing for sure.
It's like, you know what Werther's Original is, right?
Werther's Originals, are they like fucking malty? Not malty. Taffy, caramel candies.
It's like
they're gross. They're gross.
But they're a hard candy.
It's like the thing you get on top of a lollipop, but without the lollipop stick.
Yeah, those are gross.
It's boiled sweets that by design are not even attached to lollipop sticks in the first place. Grandparents have been shoveling that shit down kids' faces for centuries, and it's never been a problem because most kids aren't retarded enough to try swallowing them.
You remember that bowl of mixed candy that was always on old people's coffee tables that had the funky little strawberry thing?
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
and kids would put them in their mouths and not even try swallowing them. Why would they? They're incentivized to keep them in their mouths while they suck on the delicious sugar. And I say that, but most kids are indeed retarded enough to try swallowing something like a penny or a marble or the cap from a toothpaste tube at some point during the earliest years of their retardation. I according to my parents, I did at some point swallow a penny. I'm sure most of us did. That's the point. But they hardly ever die from it. I don't know how miraculous that is. Maybe God is looking out for these kids who swallow something that might kill them, while God curiously looks the other way while other kids die from leukemia. I don't know what's going on. Maybe kids have evolutionary mechanisms for dealing with these things, like they're instinctively able to hold their breath underwater and whatnot. And sure enough, this kid didn't die either. She just learned the lesson that most kids learn at some point. Don't swallow anything too big to swallow. And parents, in turn, learn the lesson to keep small, hard objects away from children. Some confectioners even had the bright idea of further avoiding the problem by attaching their hard-boiled candy to a stick to make sure this doesn't happen. Evidently, it's not that difficult, but apparently it is that difficult for this dopey cunt. And so she's banning the candy that's attached to sticks, but not the candy that's not attached to sticks. How the fuck does that make sense? It's like banning bleach bottles that have child-proof caps, yet continuing to leave glasses of bleach lying willy-nilly around the house. What else is she going to do? Ban people from wearing buttons, lest one of them gets detached and finds itself in the mouth of some retarded child? Ban people from having eyeballs in case a child tries to suck them out and swallow them? ban children from having teeth in case they swallow those teeth while they fall out. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Just bash out all the teeth out of your child's face? That's the safe thing to do. Or maybe you could just take care of your fucking child. It's like the video game argument, or the porn argument, or the gun argument. Just don't leave your child with a fucking gun. If you're that worried about it, just don't hand a loaded Kalashnikov to a toddler. Is that really more difficult than banning everyone from concealed carrying a goddamn lollipop? No, not if you're a rancid authoritarian cunt who offloads all their accountability onto the rest of the world because you never managed to grow up from the dirt-eating child you always were. It's a hilarious non-story that's just here to amuse us. But do you like how I still managed to turn it into an important political point? The kind that we always talk about every week, how women are always fucking up the party for everyone else because men treat them like children. Just goes to show you, all roads lead to romantic chivalry. It's funny how that works.
All right, there's not much else to say. I think you guys basically knocked it out right there. But I thought it was, because tis the season. Whenever Halloween comes around, there's got to be some story that really puts the scare in, essentially like irresponsible parents everywhere. So yeah, just be good to your kids and it'll probably be okay. All right, so we're gonna wrap up the show there and head into the patron show and look at this article. We might just end up talking about other stuff while we're at it. From Politico, entitled "Opinion: Democrats' problem with male voters isn't complicated. Male grievances can be harnessed by reactionary forces, but there's a simple way to prevent that." Which seems to suggest that the issue is not that there might be a reason why these men have these problems, but that the problems they're having are a problem for the Democrats or women more broadly, because that's usually what this always comes down to. Anyway, if you want to join us on that, please consider becoming a badger yourself by going to feedthebadger.com and starting a monthly subscription. $5 a month will get you into our Discord, where you'll be able to look at all the additional content. And if you give it higher levels, you can even be a part of the conversation. We also have lots of things going on within that. Allison's got her writer's room, and they meet often and discuss stories, and it's also that people that want to become writers themselves get a little bit of a support group, a little bit of help. And there's game nights, and there are movie nights, and there are anime nights, and all of that. So please consider doing that. Again, that's feedthebadger.com/subscribe to join us. All right, so with all that out of the way, if you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment, let us know what you guys think about what we discussed on the show today, and please, please, please share this video, because sharing is caring. Thank you so much for coming on today's episode of HBR News, and we will talk to you all in the next video. See you next Tuesday.
Men's rights activists, machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.